Hi everybody, I'm Steve Hartman, and in today's lesson we are going to cover almost all of the rest of the chords you need to know to play almost every single one of the songs that your church does if your church plays contemporary music. But first I want to just tell you a little something. A couple days ago I was just so tired of staying home, and it's been several weeks since I've been more than a few miles away. I drove up to a place called Sunset Point and I shot this lesson up there, but when I came home it was too windy to use it and there was a lot of noise in it. So I'm doing it over, and I hope you benefit from this lesson. The next lesson is just going to cover a few more chords, 2 or 3 bar chords, and that's going to be all the ones you need. And we're going to start today with 7th chords. First, let me remind you of a couple of things we've already learned. Never ever turn your guitar like this when you're tuning up, because it's possible that a string will break and fly off and hit you in the face, and we don't want that, do we? When you're standing up, have your guitar somewhere around your torso. Don't have it down around your knees, because it's going to be really hard to play that way, although you will probably look really cool. It takes less energy to move your hand up and down if you're holding your pick like that than it does if you're holding it like that. That being said, a lot of times I will play the guitar like this instead of like this. And I don't say that people that hold their pick like this are wrong or bad. I'm just saying, from a scientific standpoint, you'll be able to go faster if you hold it like that than that, because it takes less energy to move it. And today we're going to start with 7th chords, and I am going to enlist the help of a visual aid. Our first chord we're going to talk about is a G7 chord, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of music theory because I think it's important to know. And are you ready? Here's the visual aid. You may see a G7th chord written on a chart, and it looks something like this. Got it? G7. Oh no, what is this going on now?
Even I don't need a visual aid to see something that simple.
Donna, I told you to stay out of my videos. Really, I'm trying to give a guitar lesson.
But I'm a professional now.
You know what, Donna? I think you should have your own YouTube channel.
That's a good idea.
So, my announcement is, from now on, Donna Dingbat will not be on this channel anymore. She's going to have her own channel, and I'll put a link down there in case you like these funny little videos I make. They don't really have much to do with your worship team, so we're just moving them all over.
Can I just say one more last thing?
Okay.
God bless you guys. Stay safe, and I love you. Mwah, mwah.
Goodbye, Donna. Okay, where were we? G7. Now, the theory part I want to tell you is, today we're going to look at 7th chords, 2 chords, 4 chords, and all that means is, in a 7th chord, you're adding the 7th degree of the scale. But a 7th chord is really weird, and this is why. If we're in G, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There is the 7th degree of the G chord. G major, there's the 7th. It's always easy to find the 7th because you just take your tonic note and go down a half step, and there you are. So for a 7th chord, you have to flat that note. Even though it's written like this, and it doesn't say G flat 7, you count up to the 7th tone, and flatten it 1 there, and that's your 7th. It's even going to be better to do it like this. 7, flatten it 1, there's your G7 chord. G dominant 7th is what they'd call it if you're studying music theory, but anytime you see this, whether it's a G7, C7, F sharp 7, anything, if it just is the letter and the number 7, you find that 7th degree and flatten it 1. Now that's not the case with a 2 chord, a suspended 4th chord, a 13th chord, 11th chord. Only the 7th chord. I don't know why. You just have to trust me. If you ever have a music book, whether it's Chris Tomlin or Hillsong or Nirvana or the Rolling Stones. It doesn't matter. When you see G7 or any seventh chord, you have to flatten that seventh and you'll be playing it correctly. So let's learn all these seventh chords. They're going to be really easy. Okay? Remember, we learned how to play G like this and like this. Let's play it like this. Lift up the pinky finger and put down your index finger on the first string, on the high E string. Now, here's how you can cheat a little bit. With your ring finger, which goes right there, if you deaden the A string, you don't even really need to worry about this one. And there's a logical reason, a little bit of theory here. This is the B note, part of the G chord. This is also a B note. You're still getting the full chord, like that. So don't be too lazy, do it like that. But if you're freaking out and this finger gets a cramp and moves out, it's okay, just deaden the A string. Okay, that's G7. We're gonna go right up the scale. A minor seventh. We know A minor, really easy one here. Lift up your ring finger. Here's your A minor seventh. C seventh. Play it like we learned, and take your pinky finger and put it down on the third fret of the G string. There's your C7. D. We learned how to play D like this, I believe. To be honest with you, I don't really remember the fingerings I taught you, but it was probably this. So now to play a D7th, you need to refinger this baby and do it like that. G string, second fret, middle finger, high E string, second fret, ring finger, and then you can use your index finger on the first string of the B fret. Or if you're smart, you would use it on the first fret of the B string. And you can use your pinky to make that a regular old D. Moving right along, we know E minor, an easy one. I'm going to teach you two different ways to play E minor seventh. The easiest way is just to lift up your ring finger. And a way that usually sounds a little bit better is to use these two fingers, peace brothers and sisters, to play the E minor and go to the third fret of the B string with your pinky and add that seventh there. Okay, that is the seventh of the chords we've learned so far, and we're going to learn some new chords. These are just going to be major chords. Two really important ones are E and A. So we're going to start with E, because the guitar is kind of like an E instrument. It's all E. So, using your two middle fingers, which would be the pinky, would be the ring finger and the middle finger, play an E minor, like so, and take your index finger and put it on the first fret of the G string. That's an E chord. And as long as we're holding that there, what I'd like you to do is now move every one of these fingers one string closer to the floor, and that will make it an A minor. Back up towards the ceiling. It's a good little exercise to practice to get your chord changes nice and smoother. And now for the A chord, which I'm going to show you a way to play it, but there's really no right or wrong way to play it as long as you can get all five of these strings to sound. Right now I'm playing it with a good way to learn, which is we're going to play the D, G, and B strings all on the second fret. And I'm going to start with my middle finger on the D string, ring finger on the G string, pinky on the B string, and there it is. Now you can't play it like this using these three first fingers, but sometimes it's kind of hard to fit them in. So I always like to do that if I'm using my three fingers to play that chord. But when I play that chord, I usually play it like this because I'm lazy and I only like to use one finger if I can. So I'm barring those 3 notes with my index finger. And the weird thing about it is if I'm playing this chord, which can be a C sharp minor or an A major 7th, and I want to go to an E, to an A, I am making so many mistakes again, maybe I need to take another vacation. Go like that, and I just squint that finger up so they're all on the 2nd fret. And now I have a really weird fingering, which I would only use when I'm going back and forth between those 2 chords. I will quite often use my pinky or my ring finger, occasionally my middle finger, most often my index finger. Doesn't matter, but when I'm moving up and playing bar chords using that shape, well, I better stand up so you can see. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to use my pinky finger or this one. But for this, it's almost always the pinky. But we're just beginning and we're learning the A, so either play it like that by barring or by this, and you're going to be just fine. Okay, so that's 7th chords, E chord and A chord. Now we're going to learn about 2 chords, and your music theory teacher or your jazz professor may tell you it's really called an add 2 or an add 9, where there's no such thing as a 2 chord. I don't care. I don't want to argue. I like to call them a 2 chord because it's the 2nd degree of the scale. Starting on C, that's an easy thing for me to count up to 2. C, D. So C with a D note is a C2, and we've already learned this one. Remember? You can go back and forth between G like this. Now let's learn a few more. D, if you lift up your middle finger and play that high E string open, that's the 2. You can play that for a D2. The A, if you lift up your pinky, that could be an A2. And it's really even easier to play than an A chord because you're only using 2 fingers, your middle finger and ring finger, on the 2nd fret of the G and the D string. Wow, this is sounding so complicated. This is not rocket science. E2. There's your E chord. Now the only really easy way to play an E2 on the guitar is to play it up here, which would maybe make somebody want to call it an E add 9. Doesn't matter. I like E2, and I'm going to tell you why at the end of this video. So there's your E chord. There's E2, or maybe E add 9, but not E9. A G. It's a little bit of a tricky one. It doesn't happen that often. But you could play your G chord like that and put your index finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. Sounds kind of nice. All right. Now I want to talk just a second about why I like to call the chords what I call them. And the best example I could think of is I was in church reading off a chart. First time I played this song, and I came across this. E minor add 2. And by the time I figured out what that meant, we were already on the next chord, because I was trying to figure out who's this E minor character and who's he mad at when I looked at this. Why is he mad? It just is a silly way to do it. So I think it's important to make the charts as easy to read as possible, especially when you get a little older and your eyes ain't quite as good as they once were. In music theory, the proper way to notate major is with a capital M and minor is with a small case m. I was at a huge church reading a chart on the worship team, and it said E capital M. Now, how was I supposed to know that that was a major 7th chord? Because it was a capital M and not a small case m. Unfortunately, by the time I realized what was going on, we were past that. My eyes weren't really good enough to differentiate between the 2 and the 12-point font that the worship leader was using. So, theoretically, correct or not, is not nearly as important as communicating effectively, playing the right chord, having it be easy to read. That's what really matters. Heavens to Murgatroyd, I have forgotten the D minor chord, but let's learn it real quick right now. If you play your D chord like this, without using your pinky finger, you've got index finger 2nd fret, G string, middle finger 2nd fret, high E string, and ring finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. That's a D. Simply keep this finger down, keep your ring finger down. Remember, we want to keep our fingers down whenever we can. So keep that one down, lift up the other 2 and switch them around so you're on the 1st fret of the high E string with your index finger. And the 2nd fret of the G string with your middle finger. And that's a D minor chord. Remember, D, we only going to play the, I'm so good at English and grammar, aren't I? D chords, we're only going to play the 4 highest in pitch strings. So that's D minor. Next lesson, we're just going to learn 3 chords. We're going to learn F, B flat, and B minor. And we're going to learn how to figure out where to put your capo on. And that's going to be it for the beginning lessons. If you master the stuff I've shown you, you should be able to play 99% of the songs your church does, as long as we're doing contemporary worship. I love you guys. I hope you have a blessed week, and I hope this lesson has been helpful to you. Please leave a comment if you have any questions. Hit the subscribe button, because that helps me. It at least helps me know that people are watching. And maybe just play the guitar for a second before I hit the off button. I hate hitting the off button.